Or eat, sleep, yoga, repeat.
That's your girl's.
That's mine.
You're limited.
Talking about. Don't talk about her like she's limited.
She told me to relax.
She tells me to relax a lot too. It's a good balance, bro.
Maybe that's what I need. Maybe I need a yogi in my life.
You might. But it's been working out for you.
Chill me out a bit.
Yeah, you're doing
What's been working out for me? Not having a yogi in my life.
Maybe. I mean, you've been killing it. And yeah, you have a lot more time to do courses and shit like this. So
all right, let's get it rocking. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. We are live. The Muay Thai guys, Paul Reaper Banasiak from MuayThaiAthlete.com with Sean Fagan of Muay Thai Guy. We have a super exciting episode today. We're covering a lot of stuff. There's a lot going on in the Muay Thai world, the kickboxing world, the world of combat sports, and the social media behind all of it. Sean and I are trying to make huge waves when it comes to all the retreats, when it comes to courses, just being a main source, information, entertainment for everyone. And eventually what we are going to reinvest in is trying to create a team for both of our outlets, being able to pass down more and more content. So Sean's been able to kind of streamline a lot of his content recently. My goal eventually is to do the same. And a lot of these courses and a lot of the things that we're putting back into it are just reinvestments back into the community. So however you can invest in yourself is actually investing in the community as well. Today, our main topic is going to be solo training. It's been something that I've been really, really focused on, I would say probably since the beginning of my career. It was just a reality I had to go through growing up here in Connecticut. Definitely not the mecca of combat sports, and definitely not the mecca of Muay Thai and kickboxing. And whether you grew up in Connecticut or in New York City like Sean has, I'm sure everyone can relate to a time where you didn't have a training partner, where you were forced to train in the dark, train without a trainer, or you were between gyms, and the frustrations of feeling like you don't have a real team around you. And I don't know if it's something that I brought with me from my childhood, but I've always learned to just never depend on other people. More recently, I've been definitely trying to change that. But I feel like it honestly has definitely helped with my creativity. What has your experience been with going between different gyms and training by yourself? How big of a factor and fraction of your training would you say that training on your own is?
It's a big portion of it, man, because you have to think about it. Like you were saying, you really can't depend on anybody else especially when you're first starting off. You have to develop that self-discipline and that drive and that work ethic on your own. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how much help you get. It's when you're by yourself. It's that whole quote that's like, the vision of a champion is the one bent over, drenched in sweat while no one else is watching, right? And that rings true to it, man, whether it's fighting or entrepreneurship or whatever it may be.
It's the person huge in that. Even more so.
Yeah,
not physical. You're inside your own mind the whole time.
No, the whole thing of the mind and body connection is super important when it comes to this kind of stuff. And it's really easy to be a follower, right? It's easy for having coaches and trainers always be telling you what to do and game planning for you and doing all that kind of stuff. But it's not until you're able to kind of be independent with your own training methods. Instead of asking what kind of training should I do, and like asking for opinions, go find out, by doing it or by researching it and be more proactive in it. And I find that's been a big key to my success in most of my areas of life. That being said, I mean, it's fucking super important to be in the right environment around the right people and like feeding off the other positive driven people that are in your inner circle, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, of course you want to set yourself up with the best circumstances, but you always need to have that plan and dependency on yourself, that independency when it comes down to, your coach having to leave, especially if you're in a successful gym. Your coach has to mend and take care of other fighters. They have to travel, like we just had Bellator that was in Italy. There's shows going on all over the globe, and the more fighters travel, the more the coaches kind of get spread out. Sometimes you get spread out thin. And the more that happens, you have to depend on yourself at the end of the day. I would say from just my own personal view, especially as a trainer, even a lot of the time I try to teach a lot of my students drills that they can do on their own. And I always give them homework. So at the end of the session, I'll say, you really have to work on this. This is your homework. And when you come back in the next session, I want to see it be better than when you just left today. Because a lot of the people, I can tell which ones do the homework and which ones don't. And I used to not say this, but I would see it in the ones that would come back and that would be better 3 days later when we had our next personal training session. So, I mean, I've had clients that would pay me $600 a month, and some of them would make progress every single time I saw them. And some of them literally just wasted their money and got nowhere. Was the training any different? No, it wasn't. But the ones that were actually doing the drills on their own and continuing to do them were the ones that were actually advancing. So I think you just have to believe that you can learn things on your own. I think if you have that, we're going to go straight back to it. I think you're severely limiting yourself is if you think you have nothing more to learn, especially when you're training by yourself, in front of a bag. I feel like if you get bored on a bag and you feel like you have nothing more to learn while you're doing it, then your ego is way too high. I think you just have to humble yourself down a little bit because, I mean, right now I'm injured and all I'm doing is kind of standing in front of the bag, and I can't even put enough weight on my leg to really make a hard punch, but I'm just working on the looseness in my shoulder, making sure my jab snaps out from point A to point B as fast as possible, and just working on those little meticulous details that I normally wouldn't with my coach. And that kind of translates to the next thing is that, and for you to be able to be creative and to form your own style, you need time with yourself, by yourself, to form that style and to see what works and to play with things without the pressure and stimulus of your coach being there, training partners being there, you being afraid of doing something wrong or embarrassing yourself, especially when you're trying new things out, when you're still a beginner. And then even when I'm advanced, I'm trying to hustle hard and work hard, and everyone's trying to kick my ass in class. And that was one of the things I definitely felt like I missed in Thailand, being so overtrained. Here I always wanted that extra work, and you kind of get that drive, when you're training by yourself, like, yeah, I'm putting in extra hours that no one else is putting in. I'm doing that right now by myself when the gym is closed, sleeping in the gym. And that's where a lot of just those aha moments would come, and they still come. Like, 7 years later doing this, I remember things my coaches told me 6 years ago, and now they're clicking like as I do it and, by myself on the bag.
Yeah, I find that rings true for me too, because just recently, I guess relatively recently, within the past year, like something just clicked with my punches and the whole concept of like sitting down on your punches. And like I always thought I knew like what that meant. I was like, yeah, I'm doing it. And then one day I was just working on the bag and just trying to like really sit down and have all my weight planted on my back foot, whether I'm throwing a cross or a hook, and just really trying to have all that balance and drive just off the back foot. So this way I can come up for a check and defend or counter or move a little bit more freely than if all my weight is on the lead foot. And once I started doing that, I'm like, holy fuck, my trainer's been telling me this and explaining this to me for like the past 4 years. And it's taken me 4 years to be like, oh, that's what I'm doing. But if it wasn't for that moment of me just really focusing by myself and just drilling it over and over and over again, I don't think I would have been able to really come to that distinction without it just being from myself. You know what I mean? So I think it's really important to be your own coach, be your own trainer. And I mean, take the things that your trainer and other fighters and training partners have taught you, but make sure that you're doing your homework, you're doing your own study, your own work. So this way you can try to pick and choose what you've been learning and what's been working for you and what you can kind of like toss to the side and not worry about as much.
Yeah. I mean, it rings true for all the world champions. What do they talk about? They always talk about those early morning runs, those times that they were by themselves just doing thousands of repetitions. It goes all the way back to boxing, just old school kind of training. I've talked about this several times, probably in the first few episodes or during the time I was going through the Golden Gloves. Man, I feel like on this podcast, we've like gone through so many different stages in our careers and lives. And it's going to be interesting one day to like go all the way back, like 100 episodes and listen to just what I was thinking about and what was going on. I remember during the Golden Gloves, when I was in the gym, there's a few boxing coaches, but you see 30, 40 kids in that boxing gym. And, maybe 3 of them get that pad work because there's 3 pad holders and the coaches, and they can't do it all day. When you watch Rocky, when you watch all these different boxing movies, what do you always see? When Rocky gives homeboy his homework, all of it is on his own until he finally earns his right to get on the pads and to do to get that work in with his trainer. And man, there's so many great boxers that I see at the gym that I've never seen them even on the pads. But they come in, there's homework on the wall. Tells you, all right, you skip rope after you run a few miles, then you shadow box for 3, 4, 5 rounds, then you do bag work for 5 rounds, then you do this for 5 rounds. And you learn that discipline over years. Man, reading this book, the one we've been referencing a lot, it's called Peak Performance. For those that haven't checked it out yet, it's by Brad Stolberg and Steve Magnus. This is what it looks like. I actually have it right here at my little desk. So if you go on Amazon, Sean recommended it to me. I wanted to read like a little passage from it. There's a couple paragraphs because it kind of goes right along with this topic of creativity and giving yourself a break away from what you're doing. In this case, I would definitely say that even you by yourself, just taking that second to slow down and do things on your own, that's kind of your break, away from your trainer and the pressure of everyone being around you and just being able to have fun and flow. So it says right here that researchers have found that despite spending the vast majority of our waking hours in effortful thought, over 40% of our creative ideas manifest during our breaks. Most creative discoveries adhere to a standard arc. First, we throw ourselves into work, intensively deliberating on a topic. While our conscious mind gets us pretty far, every so often there is a missing piece we just can't figure out no matter how hard we try. When we reach this point, though it seems counterintuitive, the best thing that we can do is to stop trying. Often, if we step away from the intentional and active thinking and let our minds rest instead, the missing piece mysteriously disappears. Just like the Willie veteran runner Deanna Castor said, the magic of her success lies in stepping away from her physical training. The magic of generating creative ideas lies in stepping away from effortful thinking. In order to better understand this magic, we must turn to the difference between conscious and subconscious minds. And they go over the topic of the 4-minute mile and how he kind of stepped away from completely from running before he beat that record at 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Man, it's crazy how I'll be so into Muay Thai and just doing it 6 hours a day. And then those times where I get like 2 days off and I just get really jittery and try to go back in the gym, so many things just start to flow. I feel like, my mind finally filters everything out.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have, we talk about balance a lot, and we talk about being obsessed and almost living an unbalanced life in regards to your obsession, in this case, Muay Thai, right? Because you need to have that obsession. You need to have that drive in order to really have the energy and focus to put into your training and really see improvement. If you don't have that energy and focus, it's going to be a lot harder. And a lot of people get to this point in their training where they feel like they're not improving, even though they're putting all the work in possible. They're training hard twice a day. They're living in Thailand, all that kind of stuff. But if they don't take that step back, if they're not able to kind of do some self reflection and self study, it's going to be harder to figure out the subtle nuances that might make a huge difference in your game or in your technique or in your cardio, whatever it may be. And it's so counterintuitive because you just, I mean, you're like me. You're always working. You know, your mind is always working. Whether it's related to the business online or training or nutrition or what you're going to be planning for your meals or
It's
what
the
your
worst. And that's why I've been talking about that meditation, because I feel like it's the only way I can reset and disconnect. I mean, just yesterday when I was working on this, I told myself I'd take a 20-minute break, and during that 20-minute break, I'm only sitting and just thinking the same stuff as if I was in front of the computer, like visualizing it.
Yeah, and you know what's been really important for me too is when I do take these short breaks, whether they're a day, 20 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, I really try to limit my distractions in regards to like cell phone, TV, computer. I usually go for like a walk or a run or like get outside, but now with the shitty fucking weather, it's a little bit harder. But that being said, I try to just detach. And so this way I'm not distracted by, oh, did I get any new emails I need to attend to, or does someone like my post, or someone share something? Yeah, right. Like it's the whole fear of missing out, right? So I try to eliminate that as much as I can. So this way I have that time for myself. So this way I can just think to myself about whatever I'm thinking about, but be an observer as opposed to just kind of going through it. Because yeah, like I said, like you, we're just always working, and it's not until we're able to take that step back where some like epiphanies happen, and that's where we're able to generate more momentum and more motivation moving forward. Because otherwise, man, we burn out. I mean, whether we like to admit it or not, we get to a point where whether we feel burnt out or not is kind of besides the point, but we reach this plateau, whether it's with our training or with our work or with our motivation or whatever it may be. There's always like this point where it just comes to a halt. And sometimes, like you said, when you read from the book, the best thing you could do is take a step back, because what's the worst going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is that you're going to feel rested and rejuvenated and be more motivated to get back into it. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's that book is a great read. That's why I recommended it to you, because it's really relative to so many different aspects of life, and all the case studies and everything that they break down are just really relative to everything that we do and we talk about on this podcast. So yeah, if you haven't gotten this book yet, I have it on Kindle. Paul has it on a hard copy. Either version is fucking good, and it's worth the read.
I think a lot of people want to prove themselves. I mean, that's most of the time where I feel the most pressure and I feel the most uncomfortable, limited, unhappy, is when the people that I'm surrounded by put that. I don't feel pressure. I don't feel fear. I never doubt myself. But I do care sometimes about people's feelings. As much of a sociopath, I feel like a sociopath. It's a good thing, Paul. Sometimes, but especially when it comes to like coaches that I want to make them proud. We talked about the last podcast where going from gym to gym has definitely kept me sharp, because I'm constantly proving myself everywhere I go. I have to show them that I'm in it, whether it comes to sparring, that I'm not weak on the pad work. I'm not weak on, taking days off, but it also puts me in that overtrained state, and it definitely doesn't make me happy at the end of the day. And look at this past weekend that I just had, all these negative things that happened, and 3 days of preparing at Jason's, and I felt as sharp as ever. My mind has never been so strong. A guy asked me today at the gym, he was like, with fighting, would you prefer, sprint work, interval work? Do you do more running like throughout your career? And I'm like, honestly, man, I've done both, right? So I've done like all like interval training for a fight. I've done all long distance. I've done a mix of both. The biggest difference I've ever seen is just when I'm in tune and I'm flowing and focused. As long as I'm training that 5 hours a day, or as long as I'm training every day consistently, working on my conditioning, whether it's pads, bag, running, and just pushing myself to that like submaximal limit. That's pretty much, it's not really relevant whether I'm sprinting or I'm running. I don't feel any different in the fight. The only time I feel different is if I'm unsure, I'm tense in the fight, or, I'm just thinking too much, whatever it is. But whenever my mind is just clear, man, that's what matters the most. So like here, I trained a lot by myself at Jason's gym, sleeping inside the gym, just repping out what my instructor told me. And I think that would be my number one thing. Write down everything your instructor tells you, especially when I see a lot of people go to seminars, right? Like you go to a seminar 2 hours and it's just like machine gun through techniques, boom, 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 technique after technique. Like, what are you going to take away? Maybe like your one little favorite thing. You have 20 new things to work on. It's going to take years and years of repetition to make them half decent. There's things I'm still working on from seminars or instructors that have taught me years ago. So, I'm taking things from Damian Trainer when I worked with him. I'm taking things from CSA when I was over there. I'm taking things from the different camps in Thailand. Little tips from like when I sparred with this guy in Jersey, or I sparred with this guy in Maryland, whatever. And I'm working on it by myself. Like we're just remembering I got caught with this. So yeah, the combination of the travel, being able to work with those trainers, then writing down everything I learn and then working on it on my own. And the combination of that and, man, I was thinking whether it was, there was another thought I had on that, but I think that's just the main thing, is to take all that into consideration and know that it's going to be 10,000 reps for each one of those techniques before you can really move on, and just really let it soak in. And at the end of the day, you might only use 2 of them.
I think one thing that you mentioned that really stuck out was the whole writing thing, training journal kind of concept. And I think one thing that has helped me is not just the training journal. The training journal is very helpful as well, but the video breakdowns of myself. Like when I'm doing my sparring breakdowns for Knockmore Nation, or even when I'm watching your breakdowns with Damian Trainer and my breakdown with Banasiak, like I'm revisiting the session that I just did and really going into detail to figure out what it is I was learning, and doing this repetition of, because like it's so easy to go to a training session and then turn off, and then you go home and you don't think about it, and you just hope that whatever you learn in that training session will show up next time, right? It doesn't work like that. It's just like learning a language. You need to like immerse yourself in it, right? So if you want to get good at Muay Thai, you have to immerse yourself in it. You have to like really study it. It's a martial art, right? It's if you want to master something, you can't just, it's not just a hobby. You have to make it a little bit more obsessive than a hobby if you want to really see drastic improvements. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you put in the time, you go to training sessions, you put in a couple hours a week and all that kind of stuff, you will see improvement. It's all about consistency. But the more focused and the more intentional you can make that energy that you expend on your training and outside of training, the better it's going to be overall, because then it will actually sit and kind of just rest in your mind and kind of just be there. And that's where the muscle memory and your fight IQ will increase, because otherwise, like I said, you can learn it. And then that was a good analogy with the seminars, because yeah, they're the best fighters and coaches in the world usually teaching these seminars, so they know a thing or two, right? And they'll machine gun through all these techniques, and it's so easy to forget them all. So yeah, videoing it, writing stuff down, I mean, it's so important. You might look like a little nerd with your little notebook in the corner of the gym writing stuff down, but fuck it, you're doing the work that other people aren't willing to do.
Like when I taught my seminar out in the UK, seeing one of the guys just constantly like, oh, hey, can you just take 1 second and can you explain that again? A guy was trying to video like the entire thing. I didn't mind it at all. I told him to keep it so he can just keep working on it. And I see him teaching it to his students now, you know, working certain things that we worked on with his students. And it's the same thing that kind of ripples down all the way from my time at Namsak Noise in Thailand. I'm still working on the techniques he taught. I'm still not proficient in them. I was in a camp, like living it for 6 hours a day and clinching an hour a day. So think about that. I'm working on that move that he taught me an hour every single day for months in preparation for fights. And I'm still back here. When I'm teaching it, I'm still revisiting it and still perfecting the technique. And some days I figure it out. And sometimes I even go above it. So sometimes I even take the technique that he taught me and I figure out a different little adjustment that actually works a lot better. Maybe it's for my frame because I'm taller or whatever it is, but then that's kind of how your own style is formulated. If you just take what someone did, you repeat it a couple times, then it's not really your own. Like you're still just repeating what someone else did. It's not really creative. It's not your own style. But the key word you had, focus. Go into the session and tell yourself, this is what I'm working on today. Have no ego. You know, whether you get on the bag, you get with a sparring partner, you're shadow boxing, whatever it is, you can be training by yourself with a training partner. They don't have to know what you're working on. It doesn't matter. Like there's a lot of sessions I come in, I have 10 rounds of sparring and all I want to think about is entering the clinch. So like the whole time they get so annoyed because entering the clinch is a bitch for other people. It's like, oh, every time I'm trying to kick, like let's fight, you know. But I'm working on my clinch entry, you know, countering with clinch or stepping in for the clinch. Maybe I work on teeps, which I fucking suck at. So I should do that way more often and just focus teep. I've been a lot more confident.
I've been I actually just went for a run today and was listening to the Ni Shobo Sports Motivation podcast. And he was talking a lot about the concepts that we're talking about today. And it kind of just makes so much sense because, I mean, we all subconsciously or consciously care about what people think about us. And so in the gym, if we feel like it's showing off, if we're doing like this specific warm-up routine, maybe you're doing like double cross under jump rope, crazy shit, and everyone's just regular jumping rope. But that gets you prepared. That gets you prepared physically and mentally. Are you going to not do that because you're worried that everyone else is going to think you're arrogant and showing off? Or are you going to do that because that's what you got to do to fucking do it? You know what I mean? And he always talks about Steph Curry of dude, I don't even fucking know basketball. He's on some big basketball team. And he does like this pregame dribble that's like very showboaty, but that gets him zoned in and focused. And I think what I'm trying to say is you just need to have your rituals and your habits that get you focused, that get you primed mentally and physically for training. And if you don't do that, if you just go into training thinking about the last thing you just did, whether it was work or talking with your girlfriend or whatever it may be, and then you go into training without setting any type of intention or focus, the first like half hour, 45 minutes could be just going through the motions, not even thinking about it, not being there, not being present. And being present and being in the moment is so crucial for learning and really just taking what you're learning in class and what you're training and implementing it into your own. And yeah, man, like you said, what I try to do every time before training is I take at least 5 minutes, whether it's a meditation where I'm just completely clearing my mind, or it's like affirmations of what I'm going to be focusing on that day during sparring, or if it's just a generalized game plan of what I want to work on the heavy bag that day. I'm always trying to have some type of strategy or a game plan for what the training session is going to be like. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, I'll get a training session in and it'll probably be all right, but it's not going to be the maximal effort and focus I could put in it, so I won't get the maximum results out of it.
Do you think a part of it is some people just don't do it because they don't? I feel like a lot of people just need instant gratification, and, you know, doing something in front of someone kind of gives you a bit of that, or, you know, hey, you know, I did this, versus when you go on your own, you don't really get any kind of gratification from other people, especially when you're just there by yourself and no one sees it. I mean, I've had coaches asking me like, man, when's the last time, you got a run in? When's the last time you did X, Y, and Z? Not knowing that I put in 4 hours before I came to the session and trained with them already. Like I was already at the boxing gym there for an hour and a half. I was already in the weight room. I already ran for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it was. So I think that's a part of it. Now, let's try to close out this section. And if you had to give someone advice on training on their own, you just had a student, let's say you're with a client, you just went over a series of techniques. There are things that you want them to work on. What would your number one advice be to that student?
That's a great question. I think the number one piece of advice I would give to someone who needs to just focus on their solo training would be probably just to document what the fuck you're doing. Because also you have to be your own worst critic in a way. Because like what you were just talking about is that I get off on knowing that I'm beating myself from yesterday. Like I'm doing better today than I was doing yesterday. You know what I mean? And so like I love that. Like if I wake up earlier and like I'm my own worst critic. Of course I hate people. Well, I don't hate people. I actually appreciate people who hate on me because that kind of keeps me even keel and highlights a few things. But I guess what I'm trying to say is you got to be your own worst critic. You can't always focus on what everyone else is doing. You have to do what you think is best. And in order to do that, you need to like study yourself. You need to study your habits, your good character attributes, your bad attributes, what you need to work on, your weaknesses, your strengths. I actually just recently on my whiteboard behind me right here, fucking did like a whole Muay Thai self-assessment. I like wrote down every aspect of Muay Thai, like clinch, boxing, and then underneath that I had like positioning in the clinch, sweeps, knees, elbows, and so on and so forth, right? And so I'm trying to figure out what I need to be better at, what I'm okay at, and what I'm already good at, and I need to like focus on a little bit more. And doing that kind of self-assessment is crucial to know what you should be implementing into your training and what type of training you should be doing. So I guess that's what it is. Do a fucking self-assessment. Maybe I'll make a Muay Thai self-assessment for everyone so they can kind of rate themselves and see where they stand in relation to what they perceive of their own skill levels and whatnot. I
really like the self-accountability, and although it could go into a dark place, especially if you're using social media, I really like, Jocko, the Navy SEAL. Every morning he posts that picture with his watch. It's like 4:30 a.m., 4:20 a.m., like always before like 4:30 a.m. he has that watch. Every morning he posts a picture of it. So if that's something you need to do, I did that a couple times and it felt fucking good, man. Just consistent. Boom, boom, boom. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm doing. So if you have the discipline to get up, to post that, all right, I'm up, I'm about to get it, kind of telling people that's what you're going to do, accountability. So even though you might not be with anyone, but giving them the accountability, I'm going through week 1 of this program all by myself, posting that up, I think that can give you a lot of satisfaction and definitely keep you accountable. I mean, it definitely worked out for me. And I would probably give a lot of the same advice you have. I think the main thing would be to give a couple points to focus on and then just say, literally take 5 rounds to do that. So a lot of my students, I guess one of the main things would be, getting up on your toe, like engaging your glutes. That's a big one, is getting the glutes through when it comes to kicking, when it comes to throwing knees, or even throwing a cross. They kind of like stick their ass out behind them while throwing the cross. So to get it to engage, I'll spend a lot of rounds during the session to make them really like engage it, get it. And then I just say, your homework is to just never do that wrong again. So I want you to rep this up. Yeah, pretty much. Like, you got it for like half the class, but I don't want you to come back and then just we're back at square one. So I'm going to give them those 2 points, you know, turn your shoulders at this simultaneously with your hip, you know, connect it with your stomach and just, you know, squeeze your ass and get your hips through. And when you come back, I just don't want to see you doing it wrong anymore. And, you know, you come back, there are things that are going to be wrong, but you can you can assess yourself.
You push them in the right direction.
And you're going in the right direction. So you need to learn to set your goals in real extremes and then reassess yourself. Exactly what you said. Just make an assessment of yourself, but just keep reaching for those extremes, you know, thousands of reps, hundreds of reps. And there's a reason why in a boxing gym, they'll tell you to do 1,000 jabs or 100 jabs. There's a reason why you're in a Muay Thai gym. They tell you to do 200 knees, 200 teeps, 200 kicks, 200 this, 200 that. You know, if you do it with shitty technique, obviously it's it's doing the opposite, but you're learning patterns. So I think that would be the main thing. And that kind of shoots straight into the courses. That's what I try to implement in the courses, to give people an infographic during the videos. So I'm trying to stimulate all your senses. When I made this course, that's kind of the way I wanted to structure it, to make it a creative piece that's very informational, and it stimulates all your senses in the way where it's entertaining. So you kind of dive straight into it, but it's visually appealing. But then there's also technical instruction in audio form, where I'm actually sitting there talking to the camera as either footage is rolling by of my highlights from my fights, showing what I'm teaching you, or it's the actual act of me doing it on the bag. And I try to take as many biggest bang for the buck drills and exercises that I have done throughout the past few years and throw them all into one course. It took a lot longer than I anticipated. It was a lot more effort for just little things. You'll see the editing work is rather, I go in rather deep with how I edited the whole thing. Like with every chapter, you get a preview to the next chapter, and there's 3 chapters in the full thing. I start with something that I think is most looked over, which is the clinch. So clinch 101 and how you can clinch by yourself. This is something I have never seen. Like when I was in the States, no one ever taught me how to clinch by myself. A lot of people, their biggest problem, every gym I go to and I ask, you know, how many times a week do you clinch? Most of the time it's 1 time a week. Some people say we never clinch. Some people say it's just fucking random. Then there's some really good gyms. Like that's why I go to the Institute. I know they clinch every single day. Even on Sundays, they'll go like half hour straight, elbow pads, elbowing each other in the face. And that's how they learn. Like they have a lot of fighters now that are just progressively getting really, really good, especially in the clinch as smaller guys. They just had Malcolm that won the open division with the clinch. So chapter number 1 is all about clinch. And I teach posture, how to grip the bag. There's 2 different bags that I use in the video. The different drills on how to use your footwork, where to place your weight, how to engage everything, and then literal drills on how to stab the knee, how to do a close range knee, how to do knees from further away, how to transition, how to pick up the bag, and then just conditioning and freestyle. Then there's chapter 2 that goes into more explosive combinations. So it's a lot of pattern setting and then pattern breaking. So a lot of people have a hard time, you know, they do cross, they do kick, they do, you know, they do those basics that, especially that you feel in Thailand, like, you know, more power this, more power that, and you're just kind of hitting with no focus. So that's what I try to bring is the focus in, to set patterns, have great technique. So I pause the videos and I give little, you know, details to engage this here, to turn this all the way this way, and technical detail, but also the tactical stuff, meaning I'm starting to show how to set this pattern with my left leg and how to transition that to a punch, to faking my left side to go into the right side and things like that. And then the 3rd chapter goes into pretty much bringing it all together. So if you took the principles from before and apply it to the third one, it's just a real killer. I feel like I kind of did some of it. You saw me in the back at Madison Square Garden, just doing like check kick, check kick, check kick, check kick. Not even for the fact that, you know, my plan was to check and kick, but for the reason of me finding my center point of balance and being comfortable and loose and being able to throw my leg up and check right after, you know, in case I kick his back leg and he wants to return, or, you know, if I need to defend. So I felt very balanced about resetting my kick, you know, anytime I threw to his back leg and things like that. And I felt super comfortable in the fight. And obviously I wouldn't feel that way if I didn't do that drill a lot. So all of these drills are something that I actually do on my own. And I just wanted to create something so people don't have any kind of excuse anymore when it comes to not having training partners, not being able to drill, and, you know, especially clinch. Like, oh, you know, like we just don't work clinch. So, you know, here's your solution. Yeah. And all of it's free. So yeah, the link is in the description. The whole thing is free. I'm just giving knowledge away. It links in the third chapter. After you get the third one, it links into Sean's heavy bag blueprint, which honestly, after going through it, is just ridiculousness. I have no idea how you had the patience to sit there and film 100+ videos, especially breaking everything down, literally like breaking down every combination. So I thought you would teach fundamentals and then just put them together and let the whole thing roll through. But seeing you sit there for each combination and explain, you know, weight shifting and technical detail, tactical detail, having 35 workouts, and then just like progressing the entire thing. I don't know how you had the patience to do that. And that's why I feel like I can't make anything better. I can make this creative experience that will definitely get you interested and help you. But to have a full program that just covers fucking everything, I don't know what else you would want to get after that. Like, what else do you add on?
Well, I think that's what we try to do, though. We try to like over deliver and make sure there's no room for critique at all, you know. So we want to help people as much as we can. So we don't want to create shitty courses and teach people the wrong habits or wrong workouts or whatever it may be. We really do our diligence when it comes to not just filming, but like the technical aspects of everything. We really put our hearts and soul into all this. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Paul's new manual on the heavy bag, make sure you check it out. Go to the link. And if you haven't checked out the heavy bag blueprint, he'll send you more information about that as well after you go through the manual. So yeah, there are no excuses. Like if you have a heavy bag, if you have access to a heavy bag and you have a pair of boxing gloves,
you even have a manual where you teach how to create a heavy bag.
Yeah, there's a fucking manual to create a heavy bag. You can make the most ghetto heavy bag. There's aqua bags, which are great, where you see a lot of boxers use. They're like, they're pretty cheap. They're like 30 pounds. They're really easy to set up. And dude, you can do anything. You know what I mean? If you can think of all excuses in the world, or you can just make a solution, and it's up to you. I mean, this is what we're all coming down to. I mean, the whole full circle of this podcast is just kind of being your own worst critic, but also being your number one own training partner and trainer and coach and supporter and all that kind of stuff. It's a weird balance. You have to put on a lot of hats. But when it comes down to it, if you want it bad enough, if you want to improve and reach whatever goals you have, you need to put in the work. And we've created the resources to help you get there. Because I mean, we've gotten pretty far so far in our careers. I mean, I feel like we're just beginning as well, and so we'll obviously have more to teach as it goes along. But we'll be sharing that with Nakamura Nation and the rest of the Muay Thai community. And yeah, it's exciting times, dude. And with the new year coming up,
this is awesome.
2018 or 2000 was it 2018 next year? Shit, 2018 next year. And yeah, we're going to Costa Rica. Then I'll be going to Thailand. I know you have a lot of things planned as well. And so yeah, it's kind of nice, bro. It's nice where we're at right now. It's nice where the Muay Thai community is at. They're growing. It seems like it's only going to be growing from here. And yeah, I'm super excited about the future. So
it's just good to feel good about it overall. I mean, like, for me to fucking travel to Thailand and to spend all of my fight money every single time and every fight camp and just be back at square one, it sucks, but I love it. I'm addicted to it, and then I just purely love it. So if there's just so many people that I know just can't make it happen. They have families. And even if you get out for a week, that's the thing, is like you might not really learn much, especially after a week. So being able to have a resource like that, I think is, I mean, what is it? Just, especially if it's free at first, and then it's just
nothing to lose.
It's just a couple more dollars. Yeah. You have your money guarantee on there. Is there a way to throw up the trailer? Yeah, if we can throw up the trailer, we'll throw up the trailer. We're also gonna finish up and discuss the recent Bellator that happened last night. So get out there. It was really fun making it. So hopefully you guys have fun watching it.
Boom. Yeah, that's all I got too. And yeah, check out the fucking course, because on my computer it looks sick, and so I'm sure it'll look sick on everyone else's computer once they're able to figure it out. But yeah, good podcast.
You only saw the highlights. We gotta finish off with the Bellator. You only saw the highlights of the matchups. I was able to watch the whole thing. Besides the Varga fight, I only saw when he got on the mic at the end. He's really critical of himself, even in the moment.
I think it's a good thing to be critical of yourself. I mean, you're never too high, never too low, but it is good to appreciate things. And you were saying that Varga and Ross are going to be fighting now, and I'm super pumped about that they're actually getting like named opponents. Not that they're guys that they're fighting are chumps or anything, but just nice to see two of the top finally fucking go at it.
Yeah, Bellator, we talked about it on the last podcast. They're really creating a outlet for fighters to actually be able to make money, and people are always going to have things to say about that, but the realistic part of all of this is that nothing grows unless there's money in it. No one is going to work 60 hours a week. No one's going to train to the best of their ability while they have a full-time job. So for fighters to actually be able to put food on their plate because of a promotion, I think is something like we should support. So we should support Bellator in doing this for the fighters and for willing to do it for them. They put on some legends, man. Raymond Daniels, John Wayne Parr, fighting at 40 plus years old. The matchup sometimes, and that's why I'm excited for this Kevin Rose Vargas fight, is because it's two well-known names. Some of these guys, it seems like they have records, but their technical skill and their performances don't match their records, unfortunately. John Wayne Parr just kind of like, he's the gunslinger. He machine guns people. You don't know what it feels like until you're in front of that person. So a lot of people always talk about from third person. They see it from third person when the camera's up in the sky 30 feet away from their face. But when that punch is literally hitting your face, it's not a camera that's a few feet away. It's much, much different. But yeah, his opponent didn't seem like he wanted to do anything. He kind of let him do whatever he impose himself on him. He didn't want to break up any of his rhythm. He just let him kind of run all over him for the entire fight. So, and especially a younger guy saying how he's going to be more athletic. He didn't use any of that kind of athleticism or anything of that sort. The Kevin fight was really interesting. And what it made me think about is that there should be more draw rounds. Like when rounds are close, I think judges need to start giving more draws. I feel like the only time that there's a draw is if like there's a knockdown and then the other guy wins 2 rounds. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like, it's always based on winning rounds, but rarely do you see guys get draw rounds. And I think that just needs to happen more often.
That's an interesting concept. I know in Thailand, sometimes the first round is kind of a draw round and sometimes the 5th round and stuff, but so
just because you land one more hard, like let's say it's round 1 and 2 in Thailand, because let's say you fought and you counted round by round in Thailand, which they don't do. But let's say you went 5 rounds. The first 2 rounds, nothing really happened, but maybe you scored one kick versus the other guy's kick, got checked. Like it should count on the rounds that you just like beat someone's ass, because if we have 3 rounds, 2 of those rounds are up in the air, and then the 3rd round I just beat this guy's ass. Should it be really a draw? Like, I feel like that should be the winner. And just give draw rounds, like give draw round number 1 if nothing happened, give draw number 2 if nothing happened. Then 3rd round, if one guy just beat the fuck out of the other guy, he won the fight. Give him the 10-9 or the 10-8 if it's that dominant.
I think that would create some type of stalemate, though, if especially if the draws were kind of given liberally, then there'd be a lot of fucking draws, and then no one would be winning and losing fights as much. I think what it comes down to is not. Well, I think giving draws a little bit more liberally would be a good idea. I mean, they don't do it at all. I mean, they should consider it a couple times. When
and the 1 extra round is so badass. Tell me when you hear that, like, sudden death round, the extra round, you don't get excited.
That's true. I mean, in that case, sudden death rounds are always fucking awesome. But when it goes to a draw, I mean, that's always kind of a downer for everyone. Yeah. So I do agree there should be a winner and loser, but there also should be draw round. I don't know. It's a fine balance, man. I mean, that's why I'm not a fucking judge or a ref or anything, man. I just fight.
Did you watch the Lomo and Rigado, or however you say his name?
I saw highlights of that. Made that fucker quit, huh?
I watched that whole fight, and I was so embarrassed for him. I was so embarrassed because he did everything wrong that you would ever do as a fighter. He played dirty. He clinched up to make it a more boring fight. The other guy was there to fucking fight, and he just completely ignored it. He didn't care what everyone in the crowd was doing. He just completely didn't care. And then at the end of it all, he just walked away. He just quit. Calling a hurt hand or some bullshit like that. And some people made a real good comparison. They're like, fuck, man, at least Connor fucking McQuitter, like he got his ass beat until, he pretty much, the ref had to call it off. He didn't give up. And for you to be a undefeated boxer since whatever year as an amateur, man, just an enormous winning streak, and to just sit down like that, I think he kind of fucked his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, that's never a good way to go out. I mean, the whole Roberto Duran thing, even though there was a lot of, I actually watched that movie, and there was a lot going on behind the scenes that kind of led to that one event. And so we don't know exactly what was going on in his mind and stuff leading up to the fight. But when it comes down to it, you just don't answer the bell because of kind of feeling embarrassed. And like, even if your hand's broken, man, I mean,
go out on your shield, man, especially if it's going to be your probable last fight. I don't think anyone's going to want to watch him fight after that.
Yeah, I would imagine so. But yeah, Lomachenko, Matrix, bro. What are you going to do?
Yeah. All right. Anything for our people here to leave them off on? I think we've covered a lot of different things. I can tell you're getting tired. So
a little bit.
Yeah. We're going to close this one up. Hopefully we can get the Slick Show on here. I'm going to reach out to him. I haven't even said anything to him, but I'm calling it out on the podcast. So the troops, if you want to round them up, Eddie Albasolo from CSA, he's a big one on just philosophy, training on his own. And I've never seen someone implement it in the way that he does. He has some really interesting tactics and different drills that he does by himself. If you've seen some of his drills on my YouTube channel, on Muay Thai Athlete, he is very creative. And when I was out in CSA in California on the West Coast, I mean, most of the time I saw him training was by himself, and it was always with really, really interesting drills and sharpening himself. And if you watch any of his fights from 2 years ago, he's a completely different person. He's a completely different fighter. So seeing him put in that many hours while no one else is in the gym, I was just napping on the couch between different sessions because I was actually like working with coaches and trainers, but he would be there, teaching a private, then he would have a free hour, then teach another private, then he would have a free hour, then he would hit some pads. But in those free hours, he was always drilling by himself, literally in the dark. Like literally they shut the lights off and he was under
That's
no lights.
badass. That's why he's a champion, bro. That's why he's a fucking champion. What are you gonna do? That'd be cool to get him on. I would really like to talk to him and kind of pick his brain a little bit about the solo train. So hopefully we can make that happen. But yeah, for me, I got nothing really. We got 2 spots left open in the Muay Thai retreat. So if you want to come January 7th to 14th, go to muaythairetreat.com. And yeah, check out the Thailand training camps as well. I'll be hosting the last 2 weeks in February. It's the first 2 weeks in February, but the last 2 weeks of the camp. And we'll also be doing one at Diamond Muay Thai in April as well. And there's always cool, interesting stuff going on. My Muay Thai Guy website redesign should be done in a week or two, just in time for the new year. Got a lot of other projects and stuff too. So yeah, just keep checking. We're always gotten shit coming out. Always doing stuff. What's up?
Talk to you guys after I figure out what's happening with my knee.
All right. Peace.
All right, take care, homies. Muay Thai guys, we're out.